and I'm just literally coming to you with my little black book of secrets. This is from our Titan Mastermind. These are people that are doing, high 7 figures, many at 8 figures, and a couple at 9 figures. And so the collective knowledge and wisdom and insight in this room is unlike any room I've ever been in, but unlike any room that perhaps exists in our industry. In the very first episode of this podcast, I said that what I don't want this to be is just highlighting the things that are working right now, and we only share with you the Instagram version of our business. I actually want to share with you what's currently challenging. So in keeping with that, here's an interesting update for you. Almost everyone around the room agreed that more so now than ever, there is a need for us to provide value to the marketplace first before we ever ask for the sale. There's a bridge between you and your potential client. That bridge used to look really nice. It used to look sturdy, structurally sound. Where we're at right now is that same bridge, that same gap between you and your prospect and your potential client. That bridge is looking in a terrible state. Off the back of all of our conversations, I think I could sum it up in 4 observations, four takeaway observations, and then there's a response to it as well, something of a solution, and I'll share that with you as well. The levels to the game now is just absolutely unbelievable, and it's moving so fast. So I guess what's the takeaway for you when you hear this? Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Expansion Podcast. It's great to have you here. We are going to be diving into today a topic that we started in one of our previous episodes called Titan Takeaways. And this is going to be really cool. I'm actually looking forward to delivering this episode to you because it's unscripted, raw, and I'm just literally coming to you with my little black book of secrets. This is from our Titan Mastermind. It's a group that I run, and a mastermind where I bring together some of the smartest, brightest minds in our industry being courses, coaching, the knowledge sector, events, service-based businesses. These are people that are doing, high 7 figures, many at 8 figures, and a couple at 9 figures. And so when we get together, the collective knowledge and wisdom and insight in this room is unlike any room I've ever been in, but unlike any room that perhaps exists in our industry. And so when we talk about traffic, we're bringing together our experiences over the last quarter and what we've seen as far as ad traffic and social media, and what's working with the algorithms right now and things like this. And the sample size is so huge that we're able to really get an insight into what's happening in the industry. Same goes for email marketing, same goes for sales, same goes for team building and systems and structure. We explore some really cool things. So I've got some great notes, and what I'm going to do in this episode is basically share with you some of my biggest takeaways. And I hope you get value from this episode. It's going to be super cool, and it's particularly going to be helpful for those of you that are in this industry as well, selling courses, coaching, and services. And I think there'll be some massive takeaways for you. So I've got some notes here. I've also transferred them to my laptop, and we're just going to go through that right now. So the first thing that we're going to touch on might actually surprise you, but it is a promise that I made to you that I'm going to commit to. In the very first episode of this podcast, I said that what I don't want this to be is just highlighting the things that are working right now, and everything's, going fantastically well, and we only share with you the Instagram version of our business. I actually want to share with you what's currently challenging, what's currently difficult. The stuff that the online gurus perhaps just wouldn't share with you, because I actually think that that's just as helpful as hearing the good stuff. Because if you're only hearing the good stuff and you're currently struggling, then you feel like you're the problem and your business is the problem. And then you're out there looking for a solution that doesn't exist because it wasn't a problem in the first place. It was actually you're caught up in what everyone else is currently experiencing as well. So in keeping with that, here's an interesting update for you. Almost everyone around the room agreed that times are tough right now, and it's actually harder than perhaps it's ever been to do the stuff that we do. Marketing, sales, social media, these types of businesses. Trying to get eyeballs and getting attention in a landscape and a marketplace right now where everyone's so skeptical is really challenging. Not least the fact that it's also really competitive too. And so you're trying to get your voice heard on top of more voices than perhaps there's ever been. Same goes for the marketing, turning those visitors into leads and then into customers and clients. Conversions are down, traffic costs are up. And then you add on to that the fact that AI is infiltrating every area of the business. And when you've got a bigger business, it's harder to lean back down when other people can start really lean and nimble, and then they're able to take a little bit of market share. And so that was a common theme. And again, quite comforting for those around the room, as much as I imagine it's comforting for you to hear that if you're struggling with some of this stuff, you're not alone, and it's not just you. Something that many of us around the room have had to do is downsize our businesses, not downsize from a place of revenue and scaling and expanding, all the things that we're trying to do, but downsize in terms of the costs, having to just be very sensible and looking inward at where there's perhaps wasted expense. Maybe we're still paying for things that we no longer need. Maybe the team is slightly too big, and we've had to make some difficult decisions there. That was a general theme around the room, and really off the back of all of our conversations, I think I could sum it up in four takeaway observations, and then there's a response to it as well, something of a solution, and I'll share that with you as well. My four observations: number one, more so now than ever, there is a need for us to provide value to the marketplace first before we ever ask for the sale. And we've talked about this in previous podcast episodes. I talk about this on my YouTube channel. It used to be so easy, dare I say, to generate customers and clients. You could throw up a landing page, have a semi-decent offer on there, have a link to input their credit card information, and you could sign up a customer pretty easy. If you went to phone sales to do a high ticket sale, again, conversion rates were so high, and it was a novelty to book a sales call for the prospect. That was actually quite exciting, and you didn't really need much of a value piece between finding that person online and getting their attention and then converting them into a customer and a client. You could do that successfully with just a sexy sounding offer. And we're just so far past that now. It's almost unrecognizable in the landscape of our marketplace. You've got to lead with value. And the good news is, if you do that, you'll be able to stand head and shoulders above everyone else that you're competing with, because most people are unwilling to do that. They're looking for shortcuts. They're looking for the quickest path to generate customers and clients, and they keep trying to bang that particular drum, or they're trying to force that round peg into a square hole, and it's not working, but they're going to continue to do that. Those that are staying ahead of the game are realizing the stuff we're talking about right now, and then acting upon it. So we'll talk a little bit more in the episode about how we can provide more value. I've got some thoughts to share with you on that. That was the first big takeaway and observation, is just the need. Like, it's not even an option anymore. The need to provide value into the marketplace, and then allow that value be the conversion mechanism, as opposed to some, sales tactics. Second thing was branding. How important branding has become. And when we talk about branding, it's not just branding in the sense of, you want to brand your business, and you want to brand your company name or do personal branding. All of that stuff is important. Of course it is. But we're talking about bringing branding down to the smaller details of the business. Many of us around the room are finding this at the same time, that actually having a webinar used to just be exciting by itself. You could have a landing page that registers someone for a webinar with just a really exciting headline, and that would be enough. Now it's not. Now you need to have your webinar actually branded by itself. The webinar needs to feel like an event. The webinar needs to even feel like a product. So you actually give the webinar a name. You create a logo for that. You have a brand feel and color scheme for the page that actually matches and feels cohesive. And the reason why this is important is because you're leveling up how professional you seem. And in a world where people are pretty skeptical right now, and trust is really, really low, that's becoming quite important. The third one is the need and the callback to live stuff. And when I say live stuff, I do need to give you, I suppose, a bit of context. If we go back 10 years, yes, I've been doing this that long. In fact, I've been in the game for 12, 13, perhaps going on 14 years now. If you go back 10 years ago, live webinars were really starting to pop off. Like that was the game. Is you invite people to a live presentation, you'd get 70 people show up for that webinar, and you'd make an offer at the end, and you'd have really high conversion rates. And it used to always be about that. It was like live webinars just beat everything else. And then there was a period where everything went evergreen and automated, right? So rather than doing live webinars, you would automate the thing and then attempt to scale that way. And that was working quite well for a season. Some people were doing it ethically and, not trying to pretend that it was live, but it's obvious that it's not live, but people would still watch the presentation and still take the action. Other people perhaps not doing it so ethically and wanting to, actually say that it's live when it wasn't. But that's kind of beside the point. The evergreen automated style was working for a while. It's not working as well now as it used to, not even close. And this is coming from someone who's preached this for a long time. I've been teaching my clients for years to automate their webinars. And I'm not saying that we should just go ahead and turn them all off now, because in many industries that there's still a little bit of a novelty to a webinar, and automated ones are still working. But just across the board, we're seeing a shift. We're seeing a shift back in the direction of live. So I'll give you an example. I've still got automated webinar funnels that run. That is still a part of my business. I imagine it might still remain a part of my business for quite a while. But I want to add back in the live component. So it might look like for me to go out there and acquire new eyeballs, new customers, new attention. Maybe I would still use an automated webinar on the front end to go at scale and expand my traffic reach. But then maybe once people are in my community, in my world, I'll be doing some live webinars on the back end, which would look like inviting my email list or inviting my audience, inviting my Facebook or school community, or inviting my YouTube subscribers to come and hang out with me live. And then perhaps I'd make an offer out the other end of that. That is where we're seeing the best conversions right now. It just seems that where we do have this gap, trust is so low and skepticism is so high that we've got this gap that we've got to fill. And we've talked about filling it with value, and we've talked about filling it with branding. And I think it's like having something live in the business as well, where people can just come out and join you on Zoom or even in person. If that's part of your business model, it suddenly starts to bring people's guard down and starts to close the gap between the trust and the skepticism, because they can see that you're a real person, especially if they know that the presentation is definitely live. We're seeing increased conversions on live stuff. That's what's weird about this. It's like automated stuff starting to struggle, but live stuff actually converting perhaps better than it even did when that used to have the limelight. So people want to be able to really get to know that you're a real person before they make any kind of buying decision. Something else that came up, I've just been reminded of this, that there was also a point to where competition is getting more fierce in all of our industries, because the barrier to entry for someone to start a business like ours is so low. Now that should be encouraging for you, because it means that in some ways, not all of them, but in some ways it's easier to start a business now. And I think there's a lot of truth in that statement. It used to be harder to get started, and now there are so many tools at your disposal and so many opportunities and options to do marketing and drive traffic. There's so many more options now than there was when I started. But that benefit of it being easier to start a business is actually coupled with a disadvantage, which means that there are loads more people coming into that industry trying to take a little bit of market share. And so because of that, there's a requirement on us to stand head and shoulders above everyone else. If you think about the average person popping online and saying that they're an online coach and reading an Alex Hormozy book about offers, and it's nothing to do with Alex. He's not the problem here, but he did create a book that taught people how to create irresistible offers by giving outlandish guarantees that then you've, of course, got to be able to back up. Sadly, that book got in the hands of a lot of people that would learn now how to make outlandish claims to sign up the clients, but then not be able to back it up. And it's kind of tarnished the industry a little bit. And so how do we stand up and make sure that we still get the right attention on us and our business? Well, of course, it's doing some of the stuff that we're talking about here. The final thing I wanted to mention is, coupled with the live stuff in the business, we want to be able to kind of get back to something more of a soft sell as opposed to a hard sell. A hard sell is going to be, shoehorning someone into making the decision to sign up and handling their objections in a way where you kind of corner them into making the decision. I've never liked that approach to sales and never will. I've always wanted to go for a softer approach. And I'm actually finding now that it's working better. It's not that I just don't want to do a hard sell and so I'll sacrifice a few sales or conversion points. I'm actually finding it's working better to do a softer sell. Rather than trying to do the hard sell, it's actually having this kind of leaned out energy of, I don't need the sale, I don't need the client, I just want to come out, provide as much value as I possibly can. I want to do these live trainings because I'm enjoying them and I find them fun. And if you want to explore about becoming a client, you're very welcome to. And I'm finding that leaned out approach is actually working better. I'll give you an example of how I've done it recently, and it makes the sales process so much easier. And we're seeing a lot of success with this at the moment. Is if you think about the way that if you have a business like mine where you sell something high ticket, then we're inviting people to book an appointment with us, right? An appointment to speak to us about our program. And so it's a sales call, right? The way that that's often positioned is nothing more than an invitation to book a call to see if there's some synergy, is a word that's often used, and see if we're a good fit is another one. And then you get on the phone and that's it. You have your sales conversation. There was a time where that was exciting and people would want to book those calls because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, it was a bit of a novelty, and it felt exciting. That's not the case anymore. It's so, dare I say, overused that people know what to expect on those types of calls. They know that a hard sell is probably coming on the other end. And we're seeing the knock-on effect of that right the way back to the moment where they could book a call and they choose not to. And so call bookings are down. And then those that do actually get on the phone are harder to sell because they've got this guard up and they're expecting this hard sell. So I was thinking a lot about this. How can we change the way we do this to have a softer sell that's more enjoyable and actually in turn converts better? And so I've started doing an approach in my business where people can not just book a call to have a chat with me or my sales team, but actually apply to the program. And it's a true application process, and it comes with a qualifier as well. So rather than just booking a sales call, you apply for the program. And in that application process, you'll book a call. And on that call, it's not just a sales call. We're actually going to go through a qualification process to see if you're actually a good fit for the program in question. And believe it or not, we actually turn people away. There are certain people that we speak to that we don't believe we can help. We don't think they've got the right type of business, or perhaps, dare I say, they haven't got the right mindset or mentality, and so we don't feel comfortable enrolling them as a client. And people sometimes get a bit confused. They just assume that we're going to sell them. So when we turn them away, that comes as a bit of a shock. But it means that the people that we do qualify, they know that we're confident in them and their business and what they've got and what they're trying to achieve, and that we can actually help. And we're finding that with this process, rather than just booking calls, but by actually giving them the opportunity to apply and then qualify and have an enjoyable conversation about it, there's no guarantee they'll be even offered the program. So it's very far from a hard sell. We're finding that the uptake booking those calls is significantly higher than we've seen before. I'll just give you an example. We would typically on an evergreen automated webinar, we might see 10% of people booking calls, right? 100 people watch that webinar, 10 of them book a sales call. This new approach that I've been using recently, on the last 2 webinars that I've done, we've seen 25% of people on the line, not just booking a sales call, applying for the program. We're actually getting very close to a point where we have more people applying now than we have space in the program. And that puts us in a really good position, because now even more so we can double down on the fact that, there's certain qualifiers to come in and you're not guaranteed to come in. And that in turn creates more buyer demand. People want what they can't have. And so it's just it feels like a better way to do business. And that was a big conversation at the mastermind. So everything we've talked about so far, and I've got a few more things to share with you, but everything we've talked about so far, I can kind of sum it up like this. Let's imagine that there's a bridge between you and your potential client. That bridge used to look really nice. It used to look sturdy, structurally sound, it looked beautiful. There were no missing parts or planks or bricks or nothing, right? And so all that needed to happen was for you to wave across that bridge at your prospect, your potential client, and they just needed to see that you've got what they need, that you've got what they want, and that you look like a decent human being and you're not a weirdo, and they would probably make that walk across the bridge and come over and join you on your side and become a client. And it was easier to do that. Where we're at right now is that same bridge, that same gap between you and your prospect and your potential client, that bridge is looking in a terrible state. And that's our industry. And so imagine an old wooden bridge that's rotting. It's got missing planks. The barrier, the arm barrier is gone, and it looks so precarious. It looks so dangerous. And it doesn't matter how much you wave and shout about what you've got and how good you are from the other side. They're just too nervous to make that treacherous walk across a bridge that just does not look certain or sure. So what we have to do is we have to repair the trust bridge, right? So we've got to start to rebuild it, to lay a better foundation. And it's up to us to do that so that we can then take them by the hand and then lead them back over. And we do that with things we just talked about. Having great branding is going to make you look better and starts to repair the trust bridge. Providing more value, interacting with people live, not hard selling them. Like all these different pieces come together to repair it and make that walk look like something that they can do again, and fight through their fear to perhaps make that decision. Now the last category that I want to talk about is actually AI. As you can imagine, that came up with a room like this in our Titan Mastermind with 7 and 8 and even 9-figure entrepreneurs. We're all very much on the ball with this and the changes in our marketplace and what that means to what we're doing. And I guess, look, I don't want to go too deep on this, but I do want to share three big takeaways and 3 things that came up a lot. Number 1 is that many of us around the room are now using AI-generated creative for our ad accounts. And some in the mastermind are actually using it more than the, let's call them, regular ads that they would have had before. So typically we would create our own video ads, right? Or maybe find some images that we can use as ads, but they're photos that we've taken or we've put them into a photo editing software and we've played with it, manipulated it. When I say AI generated creative, I mean fully AI generated creative. So an image ad that we're running, no designer, no editor, nobody's touched that thing other than just getting a concept idea and putting that through various different AI tools to get the output and have this ad creative. Image ads in particular doing really, really well when they're AI generated. Even video now. One of our members, his name's Kieran Gill, and he always brings some epic stuff to the mastermind every time, and he tends to use me as an example. He took a picture of me, nothing more, just one picture, and he turned that into a video ad where I am speaking. The mouth and the voice is synced up. It's not perfect, but it's near perfect. And we can put me in any scenario saying anything that we want. And this goes far beyond the stuff that you can do with HeyGen, if you're familiar with that. The levels to the game now is just absolutely unbelievable. And it's moving so fast. So I guess what's the takeaway for you when you hear this? Spend some time looking into this, right? Like all I want you to take from what I just said is go and now do your own research. Like take this seriously. If you're still manually creating and editing and recording all of your stuff for your advertisements, you're probably doing too much. And I think AI can help in a big way. The second big AI takeaway, and it's a simple one, it's one that you can all do, is you can use one of these services, one of these platforms where you can create your own software, create your own apps. There's a whole host of them. There's one called Base 44, there's another one called Replit, another one called Lovable. I mean, there's 7 or 8 that we've been playing with. One that I like a lot is Base 44, and you can go search for it right now. It's a really cool piece of kit, and what I like about it is it's so quick and easy for you to create a tool or an app that can do a certain task for you, and then you can publish it in literally seconds. Publishing it meaning that it's hosted, it's available to use on the internet, like zero coding or tech knowledge needed. But I'm using it for a very interesting use case. This was actually something that I shared with the room, and many people took it away as one of their takeaways, is that when we think about these types of tools, we often think about creating something big, right? It's like, okay, great, we've got Base 44, Lovable, Replit. Now, what could be my awesome, massive software that maybe I could sell one day, or maybe I can give that away as a lead magnet, but it needs to be epic? I've been using it very differently. I've been using it to just help me with very simple tasks, oftentimes accounting-based tasks. So I'll give you an example. I wanted to do a forecast for one of my companies. I wanted to do a full 12-month budget. And we've got lots of different nuances in the business, lots of different programs at different price points, lots of different costs. And so for me to map this out, typically I would need to go to my accountant, and they'd have to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours putting this together in a Google Sheet and playing with it and figuring it out, and then presenting that to me, and then we'd go backwards and forwards for days probably until I've got an output that I can work with. Second option is that I give this task to a member of my team and have them try to figure out how to do it. But now I'm costing them time and company time and finance as well to make that happen. Third option is that I do it and I play with Google Sheets and mess around with formulas and to get it where I want it. But that would take me days and days and days. So instead, what I do now is I go to Base 44. I describe in a voice note to ChatGPT what type of financial forecast I'm trying to put together, all of the different functions that I would want, all the different formulas that I would need to have in place. And I have ChatGPT put me together an epic Base 44 prompt that is designed to perfection so that Base 44 knows exactly what I'm looking for. And then I copy and paste that into Base 44. And what it gives me instantly, like we're talking in like 2 minutes, is a fully functioning financial forecast with all of my specific company parameters in there as well. Something that I would have had to have paid hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for an accountant's time to put together, or days and days and days and days and days of my time. I can now do this on the way to work. I've actually done it on the way to work. I grab my phone, and while I'm driving, don't tell me off, I'm doing a voice message, and I'm just speaking to ChatGPT, and then I pull over and I take that and I copy it into Base 44, and then I continue my drive. And by the time I've landed at my office, 10 minutes later, have a fully functional working tool that I can use to start that day. I mean, it's unbelievable. So definitely start playing around with that stuff. And then the third thing is AI flows. This came up a lot. This is essentially advanced if this, then that. You know, you think Zapier, and we've all been using Zapier for a very long time. It's like the internet's duct tape, right? It's like this tool doesn't speak to this tool, so let's use Zapier to make it happen. If this happens over there, then do this over here. And now there's platforms like NAN and others where you can basically take that to a whole new level, and you can trigger an initial AI flow to start a task. And it's going to go through a whole process and give you a certain output at the other end. And it will save you tons and tons of time. And me, my team, and also many in the Titan Mastermind, we're all working on this a lot right now. Pete, even behind the camera right now, is spending some time on our side doing this and figuring out ways that we can make our ad spend more efficient, because we've created an AI flow where it's going to go in and check every hour that we've set and told it to go and check. It's going to go into our ad account. It's going to check for ad campaigns with certain names that we've instructed it to, and it's going to check the CPL. And if the CPL is below where we've told it we're happy for it to be, then it's going to leave it alone. If it's above, then it's going to check and do some troubleshooting. And if it can't figure out what the problem is, then it's going to notify us on Slack that there's an ad campaign that needs our attention. It's like things like that. You can start to have some real fun with this. And if you get some good ones working and in place, it's going to save you a tremendous amount of time. So there you have it. Those are some of my takeaways from our Titan Mastermind, and hopefully you got some value from that. And by the way, if this type of stuff just feels not too big, but like we're talking about 7, 8, 9-figure businesses here. If you're at the earlier stages, we're talking, just starting up in this space, or maybe you're landing a few clients, but it feels inconsistent and you want to know what's working right now. I have an event that I run. It's called Win the Clients. And I run it every so often. If you just go to wintheclients.com, then you'll be able to see when the next training is. And it's a fantastic live event that I do where you can learn what is current, what is working right now to actually launch and scale a coaching service-based business from the ground up. So do check that out, wintheclients.com. I think you'll find that helpful. Thanks for checking out this episode. Hopefully you got some value from this. I'd love to hear from you. If you are, get in touch with us. Let us know what you're thinking about the podcast and what topics you want us to pick up moving forward. And we've got some really cool stuff in the pipeline. I've actually got some guests lined up that we're going to be rolling out here in future episodes coming up very, very soon. So do look out for that. And I'll speak to you again very soon.